Governments always say the same thing, don't they? We are working for you and for your financial freedom. As the economy grows, opportunities grow too. But when you take a moment and look back at history, you see a much darker and more pessimistic picture behind those words. The real truth is this. What hasn't changed for centuries is that governments keep playing the same game. Different names, different methods, but always with the same goal. To transfer wealth from the people's pockets to those at the top, the rich. And the funny part is, these games are so old, they just keep changing the packaging. Looking at today, what's called economic growth now was simply called minting more money in Roman times. Inflation. The quietly collected tax. In the last periods of the Roman Empire, when the rulers couldn't find enough money for the army or the people, do you know what they did? They reduced the amount of silver inside their silver coins. From the outside, the coin looked the same, but inside it was empty. And what happened next? Inflation soared, wages melted away, and the people became poorer. But the worst part, do you know what it was? No one could even say, I paid a tax, because they never realized it. That's why it's called the silent tax. And if we come to the present day, it's the same thing happening again. The only difference is that instead of metal coins, we now have central banks. The era of forced lending. In the Middle Ages, rulers had another game. They told the wealthy merchants, give money for the good of the country. Did they give it voluntarily? Never. Those who didn't were punished, sometimes even imprisoned. Then they dressed it up to the people as a duty to the homeland. And for centuries, this system kept running the same way. Modern games, state debts and interest. Then the modern financial system was brought onto the stage. The Bank of England was founded. The rich lent money to the state, and bonds were created. To pay the interest, the government increased taxes. With whose money? The people's. So, the rich lent money to the state, and the poor paid the interest. Smart, isn't it? And now, the present day. Even today, the picture hasn't changed. Governments constantly borrow, saying things like infrastructure, employment, social aid. But who gets most of the money? The defense industry, big corporations. In other words, the rich and the banks. And then, to pay off this debt, the taxes taken from the people increase or the value of money is reduced. The winners are always the same, and so are the ones carrying the burden. The 2008 crisis and rescue efforts. You remember, in 2008 the banks collapsed. So who was rescued? The banks. And who paid? Us again. Profits are private, losses are public. They called it saving the system. But actually they didn't save the system. They saved the ones who run it. The retirement games. And then there's the so-called retirement system. People work for years putting money aside, and the government says, don't worry, you'll get it later. But that money never waits in a vault. It's spent immediately, leaving only promises behind. In reality, today's retirees are being paid by tomorrow's workers. The polite name for this is a Ponzi scheme, and when the system collapses, they call it reform and reduce the pensions. Complexity, the shield of the new age, today. These games are harder to see because everything is deliberately complicated. Dozens or even thousands of pages of tax codes, financial terms, abbreviations, and so on. No one truly understands. And that's exactly the point. The less you understand, the easier you are to control. Conclusion. The games stay the same, only the stage changes. Throughout history, it's always been the same cycle. In Rome, when money lost its value, people grew poorer. In the Middle Ages, forced loans destroyed merchants. Today, debt and inflation crush households. The only difference is the names and the technology. But we must remember, financial education is a form of resistance. The more you understand, the less you can be deceived. The system will never save you. Don't ever wait for it, because the system only saves itself, not you. And if what I've told you made you think, that means you've started looking from the right angle. History already knows the answers. All we need to do is start asking the right questions.